and welcome along to this evening's show of The Face of Entrepreneurs. My name is Stuart Harris and I am the host of the show this evening, but we have one of the founding, in fact the founding member of The Face of Entrepreneurs with us tonight, and we also have a fantastic guest for you tonight, very lovely, well-developed but self-made person, and I think it's going to be a really apt show because for many of you, you're going to relate to a lot of what she's going to be talking to about. To kick off tonight, I'd like to introduce you to Federico Ree. Good evening, Federico. Good to see you here tonight. How's things?
A huge good evening to you, Stuart. I can tell that you've got huge storms in Brisbane.
Yeah, they've really thrown some challenges to us. So it's got us working, and of course it made me a little bit late tonight. So I apologise to our viewers. And Federico, I just want to talk a little bit about the Face of Entrepreneurs and what that means to you and how it's all come about.
Sure, Stuart. Where do I start? There's so much to say in such little time. I guess the whole experience began over a year ago as far as the desire of setting up the networking program, the Face of Entrepreneurs in Australia. But winding back a year ago in November, I had an experience in South Africa with a bunch of entrepreneurs from Australia, and we all travelled to a place in Johannesburg and attended a week of the Ultimate Growth Adventure program. And in that particular experience, which was led by serial entrepreneur Krill Price and his team, we spent some time at the Branson Centre of Entrepreneurship, and we basically co-shared our experiences and mentored and coached a whole bunch of budding entrepreneurs that were completing their studies at the Branson Centre of Entrepreneurship. And during those few days that we were there, in actual fact 7 days, we also had an outdoor safari experience, and the whole combination of training within the Branson Centre and also outdoor adventure activities was an experience of a lifetime that I will never forget, I'm sure. And what I kind of learned and discovered from that experience was the beauty and the essence of combining adventure and entrepreneurship simultaneously, which actually is a philosophy that Richard Branson himself shares, as far as the best way of learning business and the best way of learning entrepreneurship is through adventure and sharing those experiences with other people in a team environment, where you build camaraderie, where you build teamwork, and you're essentially working outside of that comfort zone. So over that week, we did amazing things like climbing mountains with certain obstacles, crossing a river, doing a MasterChef cook-off, doing an acting show, building the tallest spaghetti structure in 10 minutes, and that was all shared with our team members. And it was obviously very competitive, but it was amazing. So after that week, I came back home, back to Melbourne, and I thought, what a great experience and what a great way of getting to know each other and learning about business and entrepreneurship. So shortly after that, I continued doing a bit of networking, and I was kind of bored with the typical networking experience where you go out, mingle with people, exchange business cards, and share a drink. And I thought there's got to be more to it than just that. So I came up with the idea, and this was something that I joined forces with two other entrepreneurs, Maya Wolnick and Ranil Rajapaksha, and the three of us basically developed the Face of Entrepreneurs, really about a program that's based on three primary four pillars. And those core pillars introduce the networking aspects, which I suppose you need, no different to the conventional networking opportunity where you get together as business owners. The second component is the inspire part, and it's about inspiring each other with our stories of success, with our highs and lows, and basically telling our story to each other to help each other during this long journey as entrepreneurs, as we all know. And then the third, perhaps the most unique component, is the escape part, which is all about that adventure and that experience again that I had from South Africa. So those three core pillars is what makes the Face of Entrepreneurs unique. And in essence, and I won't tell the whole story right now, the program kick-started in May, and since then we've had a whole number of events.
Now, it's been a fantastic roller coaster for you this year too, and a lot of these events have really snowballed and become well patronised. I just want you to touch on that a little bit, because I find that inspiring in itself. So we've got the connection, we've got the inspiration, and just take us through what those events are like, and how they've shown growth in the time that you've been doing them.
Sure. The way we like to structure these events has a component of mystery, I guess, and there's a component of surprise, and we like to only provide a little bit of information to our participants about what we're going to be getting up to. So we inform people about a particular meeting place, and then once we get there, we will inform them of specifically what the activity will be. And again, that comes from that experience I had in South Africa, where we weren't told what that challenge would be until we were given the instructions, and they said, "Here you go, off you go and compete." So the idea was to do the same and to push people outside of their comfort zone. So basically, the events have been typically structured where there's a bit of networking that goes on. There's an exchange of contacts, business cards, and a few activities just to kind of mingle and have a bit of fun. Then we have a guest speaker that comes and tells his or her story about, you know, her or their experiences with business and entrepreneurship, and what their inspirational story is for our members that participate that night. And then we have that secret activity. And as far as the activities that we've had in the past, the very first one at our inaugural launch, we had a pretty casual bowling experience, followed by laser skirmish at the Crown Casino. So that was pretty cash. But then we had, in the second event that followed, we had rock climbing, which kind of pushed the boundaries a bit further and forced people to really work outside their comfort zone and really challenge themselves. On the third event, we had ice skating. Once again, one of those activities that you don't do every day, and for me personally, I hadn't done it since I was 5, so it was one of those, again, experiences of doing something that was somewhat new and sharing a laugh with other people. And the fourth event, which we had in October, perhaps was the funnest of all, and it was Bollywood dancing. So it was learning how to sort of roll the hips and dance to the rhythm, and especially for the guys, it was a bit of a challenge, and particularly for them, it was no easy task. So we like to surprise our members with activities, and apart from the meeting place, we do give them, I suppose, an event name, and we give them a bit of a clue as to what it was. And for instance, the last show was called Rhythm with a Hint of Spice, which was all about Bollywood dancing. But once again, it's all about mystery, which is what we like.
Now, I really still haven't seen you doing your Bollywood dancing yet, and I want to see that video, so that's something that has to happen. But what we're talking about is having fun as an entrepreneur, and this is some of the things that entrepreneurs can do, because they're not just all work, or pushing the barrow, or just trying to make the dollar. It is about having fun and having a life. And the lady I want to introduce to you now is somebody who has achieved this for herself, and very specifically at a very young age. And you'll see this for yourself when she comes on. It gives me great delight to introduce you to this lovely lady, because not only is she a self-made person, but she's a speaker, an author. She's also her own entrepreneur, and she's also a magazine editor. And she's going to tell us a little bit about that, but I'd like you to welcome along Monica Cade. Hello, Monica. Good to have you here this evening.
Hi, Stuart. Thanks so much for having me. Federico as well. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, Monica.
Now, Monica, I want to ask you quite a lot, because there's so much happening in your life, and it's truly fantastic. But right at the very beginning, it was not quite like that. I mean, you had to start right from scratch. Do you want to tell us a little bit about where you've come from, and what that journey was like, and what was involved in that journey?
Yeah, sure. So I guess for myself, ever since I was probably like towards the end of high school, finishing up, going into university, that kind of time of my life, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was pursuing acting as a career at that point, and that's where I thought I wanted to go. And obviously my parents at the time were like, no, you need a backup plan. And I remember I ended up going to university and I did a human resources degree. Not really for any other reason other than they needed me to have a degree, and I was like, yeah, I'm kind of interested in this, so I'll give this a go. While at uni, I hated being there. Like, I know some people love it, but for me, it just wasn't really me. So while I was there, I was thinking up, in my mind always of what could I start up, what kind of business could I create that would allow me to pursue my acting, but also then separate me from the rest of the actors out there. And I remember one day I was walking through the university grounds and I just was like, I think I'm going to start a magazine. And it was a strange feeling because it just kind of came out of nowhere. And down the track, so I started thinking about that more, that feeling started coming up for me more. I was like, no, I really want to do this. And so I think I was around 19, 20 at the time. That's when I launched my first online magazine. It was called Mint Magazine, and it was for talent in the creative arts, so upcoming writers, actors, musicians, artists, people that were trying to get themselves out there, but the mainstream media weren't interested in featuring them, basically because they weren't famous or well known enough. So I wanted to create that platform for them, and I ran that for 2 years. I had an editor in Melbourne and I had a team in Sydney as well, contributors, and we all just worked on that together, and we were going to take it to print at one point. And then I decided to move to New York. I'd finished university, and again I was in that oh my god, what am I doing with my life? I don't know what I'm supposed to do, what's my purpose? I just had no idea, and so I booked a one-way flight to New York, and
so Monica, tell us a little. Sorry to interrupt, but tell us a little bit about that decision, because that's a massive decision, and I understand that you actually went by yourself. Is that correct? Can you tell us about how you came about that decision?
Yeah, sure. I did go by myself, and it was a strange decision I've ever made, because I didn't think about it. I just felt like I needed to leave Australia, and I had a few friends at the time that were just all coming back from New York. I'd never even thought about going to New York, and I knew there was a cool acting school there and that kind of stuff. But so after speaking to a friend, he suggested I go through this agency that you can get a student visa, and I was like, I had a look, it all sounded pretty good, and so I applied for it. And so this whole change of life was made in 1 week. I basically decided, the lady approved it. I went into the US consulate to get my visa approved. They sent it back. I went in on the Friday, and the Monday morning I opened my front door, and on my doorstep was my approved visa. And that doesn't ever happen, the turnaround, over a weekend. So, and then I booked my flight, and this is all in a week, and then I went, oh my god, what am I doing? It was only then that I started thinking about it. So I think I was just going from gut instinct at that point. I wasn't thinking, I was just like, okay, this is what I got to do, and let's see where it takes me.
So what was your greatest memory of New York, Monica?
Do you know what? I mean, it's the most fantastic city, but I have to say it's the food and all the cool different restaurants and different bars and secret places that you can visit. They have such a restaurants underground, or there was this restaurant that I went, this little bar that I went to, and it was through a hot dog shop, and you went through the phone booth, had to pick up the phone and say how many people were there, and then you'd go through this door. And so it was just experiences like that they were fun, because I guess it was sharing those experiences with friends that I made over there as well.
So those experiences that you had in New York, what would you say would be one particular experience that you brought back home and you leveraged on or utilised most effectively as an entrepreneur, as a business owner?
I think it was big to like learn to trust myself and that everything's going to work out. Because there was so many times throughout New York, you know, where I ran out of money, or I had to find a place to live, and I had a limited amount of time to find it. And it's very stressful when you're by yourself in another country. And so I think coming back, I just learnt to know that it will work out. It always does.
So what you're saying is, really, to succeed as a person, as an entrepreneur, requires that risk-taking personality, dealing with those unknowns, dealing with the uncertainties, and I guess all that adventure that came with traveling to New York. Would you say that's something that you would recommend anyone else to do as well, to become successful as entrepreneurs?
Do you mean the travel part? Like, would I recommend traveling? Or
I guess the unknown, the exploration, you know, working outside of that comfort zone, and just dealing with the uncertainty of what lays ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you're choosing that path as an entrepreneur, and I don't necessarily think that you choose that necessarily, I think it's in you, just naturally. There are some people that enjoy working 9-to-5 type jobs, and there are other people like myself that just doesn't really work. You know, it doesn't feel right, and we like to do lots of different things because we're interested in lots of different things or inspired by various things. And I think you have to take the risk, even though sometimes it's scary, but, you know, from that uncertainty you grow, and then you just learn more about yourself and you become more creative, and I think that's kind of ultimately what an entrepreneur is.
Definitely. The word grow resonates with me. That's a definite factor in that recipe. Stuart, did you want to go back to you and continue?
Yeah, so I just looking at what happened in the 2 years. So you got to the end of 2 years in New York. Is that when you started to re-pursue the entrepreneurial program? What was it that drove you from that point, Monica?
So when I was over there, I was also still interviewing people for a website I started called Career Confessions. So I was always tossing up between writing and acting. And I really loved interviewing people because I loved hearing their stories and I loved sharing their stories. I wanted to know what moved them and inspired them to be who they are or do what they do. And I loved sharing that with people. And then essentially I would learn something about myself from that as well. And so I continued that, and then I came back and I was in a bit of a slump. I went back into full-time work, and then again I found myself starting up my own business, doing some coaching and freelance writing and freelance PR. So it's like, there's a picture that goes, it's been around on Facebook and Instagram, you know, like you think success is like a straight line like this. But really, it's like it goes like this, you know. So it seems like sometimes you don't know where you're going and you're going in the wrong direction, and you should be just going in a straight line and know what you're doing. But I think all those little detours and things like that ultimately are putting you're in the right direction. You're just, you know, doing what you need to do in order to get to where you really want to go.
So it's really a roller coaster ride, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm particularly interested to understand your current role as an editor for Aspire magazine. What essentially brought you to that particular career path?
Yeah, I'm very excited about it, extremely. It just kind of happened, to be honest. Wasn't expecting it. I had a friend who mentioned he had an editing role for a magazine that he runs. And I rang him about it, and he had filled the role. And he's like, but you know what, there's this other magazine that, you know, they need a new editor, and, you know, you get to interview the game changers, the innovators, the people that are out there doing really cool stuff and have creative minds and startups, entrepreneurial. And I was like, wow, yeah, that really sounds like it's totally up my alley. And once I researched the magazine and found more about it, I just was like, yeah, this is it. I was like, I know that this is me. And from then, it kind of eventuated, and I got the role. And so for the last probably couple months, I've been working at Aspire, working on that magazine.
Well, from my experience being a writer myself, I do know how competitive and saturated the market is, with literally hundreds of, you know, printed and online publications out there. How does Aspire mainly differentiate itself from all the others?
You know, I think it's. I mentioned this group. We had a group chat about this before, but I'll say it again. I think I don't focus too much on what everyone else is doing. Like, I'm very aware of what's out there, but I am so passionate about this, and I have no doubt that, like, when you are that passionate about something, it doesn't matter if there's so many other things out there that are doing similar. You're going to have your own spin naturally, and if you're honestly that passionate about something, then it's true for you. You're not doing it out of like something that's not true for you. Then it has to work. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean it's going to be the most successful thing in the world. But as long as you're happy doing it, it'll pull people towards it just naturally. People are attracted to things that people are passionate about.
And I guess you like to attract and invite or talk about entrepreneurs, celebrities, and sports people and so forth. Is that really the range of, you know, professions you like to work with?
Sorry, could you say that again? Are those areas the areas that I like to work with?
The type of people you like to attract for your magazine include entrepreneurs and successful individuals, celebrities, and sports people. Is that right? Yeah,
that's right. So it's really about inspiring creative minds, and everyone's creative in their own kind of way. And we do have a lot of our audience is built up of a lot of entrepreneurs and people in startups, but also people that are established in business who are interested in growing their businesses or just interested in their general well-being, because the magazine is a combination. You know, we don't just talk about business or just startups and tell people stories. There's other things about there that help you be a person, or, you know, yeah.
Sure. And is the primary target market in Australia, or is it a global magazine?
We actually have a global audience, so it's all over. Yeah, because it is digital at the moment. Yeah, we have that opportunity to share it globally, which is very cool. So Australian businesses get exposure overseas, and the same, like the US. The US is our major kind of market. You know, the international get exposure here too, which is really cool.
I'm just going to steal one more question, then I'll pass it back on to Stuart. Who would you say was your favourite interviewee, or the person that you had to interview for your magazine, or someone that you've dealt with in the past that really resonated and you can't forget, I guess?
There's been so many people, and like for various reasons. One of my recent ones, Amir Zogi, he's a speaker, and, you know, on human potential and intuition, and he is one of my favourite people to interview. I've interviewed him a couple of times, but there's just something about him, you know, like when I'm listening, I'm so inspired by his message and what he has to say, and I love to be able to share that with other people as well. So I think he would be my favourite.
And what would you say that person has as far as entrepreneurial skills? If you had to identify one or two particular personality traits, again, what are they?
I think to be able to follow his intuition and his gut feeling always.
Yeah.
That would be the standout for sure.
That's really important, yeah. Fantastic, thanks for that, Monica. Back to you, Stuart.
Yeah, no, I'm really intrigued by the people you've interviewed as well, Monica, and you're talking about how that sort of activity helps people grow their own businesses. perhaps take us through or explain how that works? How do people find that their own businesses get growth from being in an interview like with Aspire magazine?
Mm-hmm. Just to clarify, do you mean the businesses that we feature, or for like people that have business and read the magazine articles?
Yeah, either or. I mean, I know some people don't have businesses as such, so you might be interviewing somebody just for their information, but others have businesses, and maybe their business is part of what they're doing and what they're speaking about. So I'm really intrigued as to how these types of events, even the one we're on now, how that helps business grow.
I think everyone has something to offer. Everyone's had their own journey and they have different things to share. So, for example, within Aspire Mag, we have a section where, for example, we've got a PR section. So we have a resident publicist, Justine Mikel, and she does a column each month. And for people, individuals need PR, businesses need PR, products need PR. So she offers up tips each month that allow people that don't necessarily have a budget for PR to do it yourself, So she'll offer up tips that you can then implement in your own life and market yourself without having a publicist. So that's one example that reading Aspire can help people as individuals or in business. And then in terms of how the magazine can help the people that we feature, well, basically, we're spreading the message of their brand or service or product, and it gives them an opportunity to share what they're about, and, sometimes you might not always reach particular people for whatever reason, but they might read the magazine and go, hey, I was really looking for that kind of service. I'm really interested in what they've got to offer. So, it's a win-win situation for the audience and also the person being interviewed.
I think you're dead on the money there too. I think that's exactly right. And I think one of the things you've said earlier tonight is people are attracted to events or other people that are passionate about what they're doing. And I think when something like an interview is happening, people can see the passion, particularly in those people who are genuinely passionate, and relate to it and be drawn to it. So I think that adds a lot. What sort of qualities would you say somebody looking to become an entrepreneur would need to start out with today?
I would say just know what you're passionate about and follow that. If you don't know in the beginning, you have ideas. For example, in my situation, I knew I was always kind of inspired by interviews, writing, and creative outlets. So I followed those, and ultimately it's led me to where I am here today. So I think just follow that, and even if in the beginning it's not something that makes you money, for me I was always like, oh, but how can I make my career confessions interviews into something that's a career? And it doesn't necessarily always turn out that way. In the beginning you think that you're going that direction, and then you might turn and be like, oh, this is actually what I was after. But those it's like practice, following the things that you're passionate about keeps you open and excited, and ultimately you'll get to where you want to go.
I'd like to just add to that, if I may, Stuart and Monica. I have, the common view and philosophy to you that passion is very much a core ingredient, and I've reflected on what made me do what I did, and what did I need to resort to the most as a tool to be able to deal with all the obstacles and challenges in my years of business. And for me, on the top of that food chain is vision. And you've mentioned passion, you've mentioned risk taking, you've mentioned trusting your gut instinct, and I would certainly put that in the top 10. But for me, vision is number one. What's your philosophy to vision?
Yeah, always have that vision in mind, no matter how big or crazy it might seem, I think you've got to go as big as you can. I read this awesome quote the other day, and I cannot remember it. Oh, it was this: whatever you're thinking, think bigger. So even if that vision is already like, whoa, it scares you, go one step further and then imagine what that can be. I think it's just about imagining, you know, what your vision is and have fun with it and play with it and really get to know it. I think it's very important.
I love it, and I think imagination is probably one of the most, or the most powerful skill we humans have, because it's with the imagination that we've been able to conquer many, facets in science and history and so forth. So, as an entrepreneur, the ability to do that is tremendously powerful. So that's great, Monica. I have another question beyond what we're talking about, and it's about your experience with the Under 30 Entrepreneur Award, the one that was relating to the Anhill Award. Can you describe what was involved in applying for that award, or perhaps how you were nominated as one of the finalists? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So it was in response to Mink magazine back when I was around 20. Yeah, basically, I think a friend or my mum or something sent me the link, and they were like, you should put yourself up for this with the magazine. And I thought, okay, why not? I'll just give it a go. And I did. I just filled out, there was like an application form, and you had to share your story a bit and your experience and answer a few questions. And then I sent it off, and I don't know, maybe it was a couple of weeks later or something, I was notified that I was one of the finalists of the under 30. And that was pretty cool at the time. It's a very cool experience when you're so young and you start up a project and you get recognised for what you're doing and you get to share your message further. I think that's the most exciting thing from it.
Fantastic. And what is your thought behind age as far as experience? So an entrepreneur who's under 30, how does that person deal with or compete with, say, an entrepreneur in their 40s or in their 50s? What particular attributes would an under 30 entrepreneur offer that perhaps you wouldn't find in someone a lot older?
I think for people, yeah, it does. So for people that are older, they've obviously had a lot more experience in the entrepreneurial world. However, there's so many, I'm just blown away by like how many young kids, like really young kids, in their early teens that are out there. For example, my brother, he started an app when he was 16 and he launched it, and it did really well. I think the generations now, we're brought up in such a different world. Like, there's so much new technology and social media is such a huge platform now, and so we think a little bit differently. So I guess that's probably the difference.
I guess risk-taking being a core ingredient in one of those, important attributes to be an entrepreneur. And I think being younger, you tend to have that risk-taking personality more than when you're older. So I think if I had to just add to what you're saying, I think that what a younger entrepreneur can offer is that a risk-taking trait that can be hugely advantageous when it's about securing opportunities and about pioneering new ideas and innovating. So I think that there's a lot going for younger people and young entrepreneurs, and you're right, you do see a lot of people in their teens now starting businesses. In fact, I see them even starting as children, and it's how young do you go? But I think there's no limit really to what you can offer as a young entrepreneur, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and I think too, sorry, Monica, is something you brought up earlier was that don't follow the money, follow the passion. And I know we've talked about passion, but the fact that if you don't get hung up on the money and chasing the money, then you're able to apply yourself with a much greater vibrant capacity to those activities, and so inspiration comes much quicker. And I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but I see this happening a lot in young people. wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the moment you start doing it for the money, you lose that love for what you're doing. It's not sustainable, because that can only drive you to a certain extent. You've got to be driven from the inside, and that's, where the passion comes from. So ultimately, focus on the passion and not the money.
Absolutely, good answer. So look, we're going to close out on the event tonight, but I just wanted to perhaps ask you one last thing, and maybe Federica might want to ask you one last thing too. But in terms of what you're doing with your life and all the success that you've had so far, is there anything else that you want to tell us about that you think is worthwhile for people to hear today? Something that's happened or worked out, or anything that people will associate with and feel inspired by?
I think to know that don't worry if it looks like it's not going to plan. That's been a big part for me. I've looked at my life so many times, and even though I'm still reasonably young, but I've looked at it and gone, what am I doing? Where am I going? But it's not really about that. You can't know where you're going. Do you know what I mean? Just be present, be with where you're at, and enjoy the experience you're having, because ultimately they're teaching you something, and you're going to get something out of it. And it's all kind of fun, you know what I mean? I think we can't take it all too seriously. I think I've learnt to become a little bit less serious about my career or things like that. Just kind of have fun. It's about fun.
Would you agree with that, Federico?
Definitely, and it is about having fun, but I've got to say that when things don't go to plan, that's where you seem to attract the skeptics the most, and it's like the flies that suddenly arrive when you're cooking a roast. What is your philosophy to dealing with the skeptics in the best way possible?
I guess you can't look to too much what other people think. You know what I mean? Because everyone's going to have an opinion. Yes, things are not going to go according to plan, and you've just got to deal with it as it comes along. It's inevitable. We all have obstacles that we've got to come across, and don't get too hung up on them. Take it one step at a time. Don't get so consumed by what's gone wrong. Just go, okay, what's the next step? What can I do right now to, fix or change the situation that I'm in? And if there's nothing, then just you've got to accept it for what it is, and then ultimately it'll change again.
So I guess you would fully endorse the philosophy of believing in yourself despite what the skeptic has to say, is that right?
Yeah, you have to, because no one else is going to if you don't.
Exactly. Awesome, Monica. Well, that's pretty much all I wanted to ask you. I think I've thrown you enough questions for tonight. Stuart, before we finish up, perhaps I just wanted to make a few minor announcements regarding next year in the Face of Entrepreneurs. If that opportunity is there, that would be great.
Please do. Yeah, and we'll just round out with one last comment from everyone after you, Federico. So
sure. Tell
us a bit about what's coming up.
So we're about to wind up the year, of course, but we do have a Christmas party on the 17th of December for those who live in Melbourne. So Monica, if you want to fly to Melbourne, you're most welcome. So it'll just be a chance to mingle with our members. Hopefully they will come. In the new year, late February, we will have our Chapter 5 event. We haven't exactly defined the theme and obviously that mystery experience. But stay tuned and go to our website on leadup.com and go to the Face of Entrepreneurs in Melbourne, and that's where you'll find more information about the program in its full extent. I personally wanted to thank Monica for this prestigious opportunity to have her at this time of night and for her to share her wisdom from real hands-on experience. So I've been personally inspired by your story, Monica, and I definitely gel with your story, so thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure sharing with you.
It's a pleasure too.
And have you got one last thing, Monica, you'd like to share with us?
Well, if I'm allowed to, I'd say check out our new December issue that came out last weekend of the Aspire mag. It's a really cool magazine. I know I'm the editor, but like it's really cool. There's some inspiring stuff in there, and yeah, I'd say check it out. There's a free trial as well, so.
And what's the website?
If you go to iTunes or your App Store on your iPhone or your tablet and just type in Aspire Magazine, it will come up and you just download the app, and then that's pretty much it. And then go to a newsstand and it will pop up.
Easy. Great. Awesome. Thank you.
Fantastic. Federica, you got one last thing for us?
Thanks to you too, Stuart. As usual, you do a great job, and thanks for asking such great thought-provoking questions.
No problem at all. Thank you very much, Federico. It's been a pleasure being part of the show this year, and I really enjoyed running it with you. I enjoy our sessions together, actually, very much. Monica, really great to have you on the show. You're just so good with this, very easy and comfortable in an interview environment. So thank you very much for that, and hopefully we can do this again in the new year, because I think it'd be a lot of fun. One of the things that I'd like to point out that Monica did raise or did talk about is whatever you're thinking, think bigger, and I don't think there's any greater wisdom that's come out tonight than that particular saying. So take that on board. I'm Stuart Harris. Thank you very much for watching us this evening, and with that we're going to close out the show. Good evening.
Bye-bye.
The feel, the dynamic, the content, the whole thing's just perfect. It's just perfect.
The adventure and variety is big for me, so I really liked that as well. It keeps people guessing. Again, it's a point of difference compared to other types of events.
And knowing that you're going to be doing an activity that may challenge you is also something really good. I like that. It's a nice surprise.
We just asked us to meet at the Star Observer over there, and I thought, oh my God, we're going, in circles, and I was, quite rapt, and I thought, oh, we're not going there, we're going ice skating just across the road. That was fantastic.
They're offering all of you complimentary classic membership to Entrepreneur Cup. It's not about just the winning, it's about having that drive. Sometimes you don't win, but at least you try.
All the right stuff that as entrepreneurs to keep going, we need to hear that stuff constantly about, be hungry, don't worry about rejection, have strong self-esteem. A no doesn't mean no.